Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy,
where we're expanding the conversation around Catholic sexuality.
We're your hosts, Ellen and Kathleen. The episode.
We are back.
And we are talking about phase 3 desire, or really rather, I guess, like maybe increasing your desire in phase 3. We'll have to figure out what the title of this episode is.
Yeah. Who knows? It's all about phase 3.
About phase 3.
And, I'll say that I get so frustrated during phase 3. Like, I can start phase 3 off really strong, right? Because we just went through phase 2 where most of the time, like, we're trying to avoid, right? I'd say
right.
In the grand scheme of everything. So it's just like, okay, green light, finally. So you're like actually excited,
Mm-hmm.
And then give it a couple days and you're just like, okay.
I know. You know what I feel like
really sunk in, and you're just like, oh man, I'm tired all the time.
You know what I feel like happens a lot is the first opportunity to have sex, phase 3, is like great.
Yes.
Because you've been excited about it. You've been thinking about it. Maybe you guys kind of like planned ahead, because it's like a lot of times you can like see the signs of the rules being fulfilled, and you can kind of know, okay, I'm pretty sure in like 2 days, like we're going to be green light, right?
You can anticipate it well.
Yeah. And so that happens, and it's like, it's well planned, and yeah, maybe like somebody lights some candles, or you guys are like really thinking about it, so it's on your minds. Maybe there's a little bit extra that's been done, right? And you have that just mental excitement about it. And then like after that, it's kind of like, okay, well now we're like green light, we can have sex whenever we want, even though we're trying to avoid pregnancy. And it just becomes a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And I
you
think
always want what you can't have.
Right. Well, and I think something that's really important to keep in mind is that your hormones actually have very little to do with your libido. What? What did I just say?
What did you just say?
I just said the opposite of what every other NFP sex account has said. Yeah. Right? Everybody's like, oh, your hormones are to blame. Guess what? In research-based studies, there's evidence-based information is what I'm going to give you right now. Your hormones have very little to do with your libido. Now, what does have to do with your libido and your desire? Energy, mood, interest, what's gone on in the day, anticipation. And so you can see the little image that we drew up for you at the beginning, right? This first time in phase 3, the first kind of available day if you're trying to avoid pregnancy.
Right.
Is like really good, because you guys have been preparing for it for probably like a week, at least a day. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Like you planned it. Maybe you've been preparing for it for like 3 weeks. Maybe like phase 3 is the only time that right now you feel comfortable coming together, because you have a very, high priority to avoid pregnancy.
Yeah.
So maybe you've been planning it for like 3 weeks, right? And it's not even that you've been like planning it, right? You haven't been like drawing up plans. Or maybe you have. Awesome.
Which is fine. That's fine.
But you've been preparing for it in your head. You've had it on your mind. You've been thinking about it. I would say the vast majority of couples who are trying to avoid, and it's okay if you don't fall into this category. There's nothing like, if the things we're saying in this episode don't really apply to you, like there's something wrong with you. It's just that these are the kinds of things that we hear from women These are the kind of things that we experience.
Yes.
And so, we just want to speak to these things. Like, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, the vast majority of couples. I did my little caveat.
Yeah.
The vast majority of couples who are trying to avoid will come together on that first available day.
Yes.
That is like high percentage. Now, I wouldn't say that I know of any studies of like, if 90% of couples who are trying to avoid come together. But like, I would just say, just from stories that I hear from women, like personal experience, those kind of things, like most of the time you're going to come together unless like you guys are out of town or you're visiting, you're separated for some reason, you're visiting your in-laws and there's really thin walls. Although, you know what, just be quiet.
Forget the thin walls. Oh man.
No, do what's comfortable for you.
Yes.
But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that planned sex can, in most cases, be better for the woman and for the man too, because the woman's desire is much more heightened. When you know what to expect, when it's on your mind, then those are the things that actually can really increase that libido, that desire to have sex. So that's what I wanted to start with.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good points. And so I guess what we want to do with this episode is really go into like tips for phase 3, right? Like, what are the other ways that we can sort of use this time well, and not like sort of succumb to I get tired. It's a tiredness. Like, that's it. Like, in all of phase 3, I'm just tired and I hate that. But how can we kind of push through that, not just succumb to that, and really enjoy this time of intimacy, right? So I'll say that one of the best things that I've started to realize that I need to do, because I got to a point where I think a lot of women do, where it just feels like, okay, it's phase 3, like we're in the clear, we're good, like we just need to use as many days as we can possibly use, right? Like, we need
raise your hand if you've had that thought.
Exactly. And like, there is still a truth to that, in that I want to use as many days as possible, but I think it went from being like, okay, gotta try to use every day, to, okay, maybe we try to use every other day, to like, and realizing that in trying to like fulfill, like check off days, I was just really exhausted by it. And it was putting too much pressure on the situation that I wasn't able to really like relax. And get
when something becomes a checkbox,
yes,
like, or it's like, yeah, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to utilize every other day when I'm in phase 3. Like, now it's an item on your to-do list. Right? It suddenly shifts from, I want to be as available to give myself as a full self-gift to my spouse in this third phase. That changes into, I have to have sex with my spouse because we said we were going to utilize every other day. Suddenly, now your desire's going down because you're not like anticipating this excitement.
And there's a pressure on you, right? So, if my husband's listening to this right now, he's probably like, I'm sorry, wait, when did you ever say that we need to do this every day, right? Or every other day? Like, when does that happen? To which I will defend myself to future Michael right now by saying that it is always a thought in my head. I never say it out loud. but it is a thought in my head, like, okay, we've got to use as many days as possible. And then by the end of a day, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am so tired.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even like think of it. But I will say to that one thing I've really started doing is allowing myself to, and obviously like encouraging my husband in this, to take our time.
Mm-hmm.
And in taking your time, like foreplay is like a big thing, right? It's a really big, like that's kind of like, we don't need to rush into it. It's like, oh gosh, it's getting late. Like I need to get to sleep. So let's just like get this over with. No, like use foreplay, and maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 2 days.
Yep.
Like drag it out, because like you're saying, it's the anticipation and the building up to it that really kind of makes or breaks. And I think you need to be clear with your spouse, if that is your desire, to like, hey, yeah, let's do this like extended foreplay over a couple days, where it's like maybe one night you guys just like hang out on the couch and talk and make out for a little bit, and then go to bed, and then
pick a card game and play strip version of that game. Like it doesn't have to be poker, because I don't know how to play poker.
Anything, right? Exactly. And then, go to bed. And then the next day, just like be texting each other all day, and like be flirty, and then maybe go to bed, maybe, maybe don't, like, but building it up in that sense is something that I find really helpful. But I usually do have to be clear with my husband, like, hey, we need to drag this out.
Yeah.
Like,
So that was going to be my next point.
Yes.
Was get on the same page
right
with your husband. And like, if men are listening to this episode, like we're definitely speaking to women here, but like you can just flip it in your head, right? Get on the same page with your wife.
Exactly.
Get on the same page with each other about what your expectations are, what you want to do, and then continue to communicate about that, right? Because you guys might decide before phase 3 starts, like, yeah, you know what? I really want to utilize as many days as possible. Like, I mean, maybe even as often as every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, watch out for that turning into a checkbox, right? If it starts turning into a checkbox, you need to check back in with each other and say, you know what? Like, I'm not excited about coming together with you tonight. Can we come together tomorrow and like, let's like do something fun tonight to get me excited about tomorrow. And that would really help my desire for you. And yeah, you might have to be really careful about how you have that conversation, because you never want to like tell your spouse like, I don't want to come together with you, right? Like,
yeah. No,
you have to be careful and gentle and tender about the way that you say these things. But I think one of the best ways to have these conversations is, hey, spouse, something that would help me to desire you even more would be this, or I would really like to try this because it will help me want you more. So instead of coming at it from like, I don't want you right now, because that can just crush a heart, is coming at it more from like, I want to want you even more, and I want to try this thing, or I think that this will help. But really just all about getting on the same page. And what are your expectations, right? Because I've been in this situation where I've thought that the expectation was having as much sex as possible, right? And then I realized after conversations that wasn't the expectation at all. And I had just written that expectation in my head from nothing my husband had said, right? And so, anyway, I'm just going to repeat that again. Like, get on the same page, chat about what kind of frequency you guys would like, what you would like to try, what kind of things you think might help you. And the most important thing is that you do not compare yourself to other couples. I don't know how many people have reached out to me or like answered Instagram polls on my account or other people's accounts. Like I see this poll all the time. How much sex do you have?
Yes.
Some
Doesn't
couples doesn't matter, right? Some couples have sex 2 times a month and that's enough for them, right?
Yeah.
Some couples have sex a couple of times a year and that's enough for them, right? Some couples have it a couple of times a week, right? Like it is not about frequency. It is about what is feeling right for the both of you, and make sure that you're on the same page, because it could be the kind of situation where one spouse is like, would be okay with like maybe once a week, and another spouse really is looking for something more like 2 to 3 times a week. And it's just like is desiring that a little bit more. And so it's important to get on the same page, work together, find ways to increase the other spouse's desire to have sex and all of those kinds of things, right? Get on the same page with each other there, but don't compare yourself outside of your relationship. It's only going to put undue pressure on you, which is going to make having sex and enjoying it and having lots of pleasure even harder.
I will say, yeah, honestly, that's a really good point, because early in our marriage, we fell into that trap. I think it was when we were going from Creighton to learning symptothermal. And when we were learning symptothermal, I remember they showed us like sample charts, and
oh my gosh, I know. I always hate showing sample charts to clients because they have like amount of intercourse on them.
Yeah. And it was the first thing my husband noticed. And I remember he asked our instructors, he was like, wait, are these just like made up charts? Or are these like real charts from actual people? And they were like, oh no, they're real charts. And he was like, huh, interesting. And it was just like, and then it started a conversation from there, like on the way home, where he was like, do you see how much sex other people are having? And it was like, bro, are you kidding me? Like it was, but it did. And I realized like, a couple of years later that like, this was a really important conversation that we needed to have. And I was sort of like, wait, are you joking? And like writing it off, which I shouldn't have done. Like, it was like, it should have showed me at that time, like, wow, this is like hitting something there for him, and we should have had that conversation then, but it took me, I was a little dense about it, I guess. Anyway, but it did, it made him fall into that trap of just like, look at what other people are doing. And I was like, okay, but like, does it matter what other people are doing? Like, why do we have to be like other people, and anyway, so it is a really good point. That, yeah, you can't compare, because every relationship is unique.
Yeah.
Every relationship is in its very own spot, right? Like you don't know what some people are going through. Maybe they need the emotional connection a lot more, or maybe they need to kind of give it a rest and connect another way. Like you just don't know the situations that people are going through that contribute to that.
Yeah. You know what else I want to mention is that like, this is going to change for you and your spouse throughout your relationship. And like
there are always seasons.
Like don't compare one phase 3 to another phase 3 either, right? Like, and it could change as quickly as just, cycle to cycle, right? I just from my own personal experience, we have cycles where we come together a lot, and then we have cycles where we just don't during phase 3 for a variety of reasons, right? And like, I think too, as women, we can get into this situation where it's like we finish a phase 3, right? We get that period, and we're like, damn, I didn't have very much sex with my husband, and like I feel terrible, right?
I get that way too.
Oh my gosh.
You're like, you get your period, you're like, shoot, opportunity wasted.
Yeah, right? Oh gosh, we have got to work on that as women. Like, please take that burden off of your shoulders if you are having that every month when your cycle when the new cycle begins. And a good way to take that burden off of your shoulders is talk to your husband about it. Like, if you truly feel that way, tell your husband, hey, I feel bad. I really feel bad right now because I feel like we didn't utilize phase 3 as much as we could have. And, I'm sorry. And I bet what your husband says is going to surprise you.
Yeah.
I bet it is.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. There's your challenge
there it is.
for the next cycle if you feel like that.
That's right. Let's also not neglect the number one rule for increasing libido basically in any phase is self-care.
Ooh, yes.
And which like hilarious to talk about self-care. Honestly,
let's talk about self-care.
Kathleen Siobhan is talking about self-care is like a total joke. It is a joke. I have no business talking to you about self-care. Okay. But I'm going to do it anyway and pretend that I'm really good at it. But no, in all seriousness, it is like, I always can tell a difference when I've taken some time to step back, to leave the kids with my husband and try to not feel bad about it and go do something for myself, go spend an hour, a couple of hours by myself, doing what I need to do to sort of refresh myself and to fill my cup. Mm-hmm. I'm really bad at it.
Yeah.
But I'm really bad at it. But when I do it, I can always tell the difference. And you'd think I would do it more.
Right.
With that.
And this doesn't have to be as, for lack of a better term, like drastic as like leaving the house and like going and getting a cup of coffee by yourself. Like this can be going and taking a 10-minute shower.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. This can be, changing out of the clothes you've been wearing all day. It doesn't have to be. Now we're going to talk about lingerie. It doesn't have to be changing into lingerie, right? It can just be changing into something that like makes you feel good or makes you feel comfortable. Like it can be the baggy pair of pajamas as long as like you feel like yourself and you feel comfortable. It can be like putting on a little bit of makeup. Like if that makes you feel good and it's 9 p.m. at night, who cares?
Yes. No, that's exactly right. And just like your phase 3s or your phase 3 will have seasons, right? Like if you've got young kids, your phase 3 is going to look a lot different than if you have teenagers, or adult children, right? Yeah. Like your phase 3 is always going to it's going to change and it's going to go through seasons. In the same way, self-care will also go through seasons. Yeah. Maybe your self-care looks one way right now while your kids are all really little and you both are needed for bedtime. And it's going to look a lot different in 10 years when they're all a little more self-sufficient and older and can get themselves down to bed, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing about any of this that should be set in stone. Yes. It's like, this is just who I am and this is who I'm always going to be. And this is always what I'm going to need to do. That's not the case. Your sex life is constantly changing according to your season. And just
allow it. Yeah. Accept it. Allow it to change.
Allow it.
So let's talk about lingerie.
Let's do it. We've done it before. We've done it many times. It's always something good to go back to.
Right. So, first off, you don't have to use lingerie if you don't want to. Mm-mm. But I think, and we're getting a little bit close to needing to close up this episode, so we'll be brief on lingerie. But here's the thing, is in order for lingerie to, quote, work, you as the woman need to like putting it on.
Yeah.
Okay. My husband and I fell into this trap when we first got married. He would order me lingerie and I hated it. Mm-hmm. I just hated the styles he picked out. I was not comfortable. I wasn't comfortable, right? You need to be comfortable if you are going to have pleasure. If you are going to be, just think about it this way. If you are going to be open to something, physically or mentally, you have to be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to like go to a random stranger and start telling them your life story. No, you might be open and comfortable with a close friend to tell them some kind of part of your life story, right? The same goes for sex in the physical way, if you are physically going to open your body up and allow someone to enter in, you have to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Now, I think lingerie is awesome. I think it can make you feel empowered. It can make you feel sexy. It can just make you feel beautiful. And so, like, we are all about lingerie.
We are all about one particular lingerie company.
Yes. Okay. So our favorite, and we're actually a partner with them, is Mentionables. You can use the code Ellen10 to get 10% off. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. We love Mentionables. That's why we partnered with them. And they are a model-free lingerie company. And so you don't ever really have to worry about like discomfort when you yourself are shopping, or if you send your husband over, or if you pick out a couple that you like and send him a couple of links, you never have to feel uncomfortable about sending links to your husband like, hey, I want you to like buy this for me for Valentine's Day, or, you know, our anniversary or a birthday or something like that. You can comfortably send stuff over to him. But we also like Mentionables is really like well priced. And they are great quality. I think they last really nicely. They're comfortable, soft, things like that.
They're great, and they're really pretty. Their Valentine's collection just came out, and
it did.
So, I mean, there are so many things that I was like, oh shoot, how much can I spend on this?
I know, right?
Because there were a lot of really cute designs. They're just, I love them. They're always my go-to.
Yeah.
You know, out of the various ones that I have.
They're the number one lingerie company they're the only lingerie company that we recommend at this point.
100%. I love their stuff. And they're comfortable. They're cute. They're great.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on lingerie?
No, I don't think so. We basically said it. The number one rule is that you have to be comfortable in it. You have to pick it. And you probably will realize that you actually tend towards a certain style, which is fine.
Yeah. I've learned the particular styles that I like, and the ones that I like that I don't like. I don't like the look of them on my body. It's frustrating too because they look so cute on the like.
I know.
I'm not going to talk about the particular styles that I like. That would be weird. But it's like, there's a style that always looks very cute on the model, and then I buy it and I'm like, this looks terrible. I know.
And you need to, I've fallen into the same trap where you actually need to start like visualizing it on your particular body, and you're like, wait a minute, that's actually not going to work.
Because again, you need to like think you look nice in it. You need to believe that yourself for it to help you with what we're talking about, right? If lingerie is going to help you increase your desire and excitement to come together with your spouse, it needs to help you feel comfortable. You need to like it. Like if lingerie is putting the brakes on for you, if you're like feeling uncomfortable when you are putting it on, if you're like cold, you know, if you're just like, oh my gosh, I just feel like, you know, I'm being pornographic or something. Like if you have these thoughts in your head, and we're not saying that any of these things are true, right? But like if you're having these thoughts in your head, don't do lingerie.
No.
Like just don't do it. Do something comfortable. Or get yourself like a cute nightie or like nightgown thing that you like that's like a little bit less, you know, lacy and crotchless and things like that, right?
Yeah, honestly, like a basic white t-shirt sometimes, like honestly, it sounds like ridiculous, but if you go to bed in a white t-shirt without a bra on, I don't know. Like sometimes
things happen. Things happen with white t-shirts.
That's all it takes. You could be literally as comfortable as you could possibly get. And still things could happen.
You can just go to bed without anything on.
That's true.
Also an option. And actually that is a good way to increase desire. This wasn't even on our list. Is physical touching skin to skin without, you know, like the expectation of sex
Mm-hmm.
can really help with just like, let's call it like latent desire, you know, just like the background desire, right? And so just, you could try. And again, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it, right? But like, you could just try during phase 3. Like, I'm just going to not wear pajamas.
There you go. Give
And
it
like,
a shot.
just see what happens, you know?
See what-
Yeah. Again, like all of this advice is like, take it if it helps. Don't take it if it doesn't.
If it doesn't, just leave it where it is. And but I think it's fair enough to say that most of us could use a little help in phase 3.
Yes.
So these are some of the things that we, have found help us. Maybe they'll help you, maybe they won't. If they don't, sorry, we tried.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate, kind of getting on the same page with your spouse. If you think or know, either one is perfectly valid. If you think or know that something is going to help you, tell your spouse about it. All right. I'll get a little personal here. I thought a while ago, I was like, you know what? I really think that candles might really help me. Like, I just do. And because I like the look of candles, I like the light that they give off. It's nice and soft, but there's still enough light. And so I told my husband that, and we gave it a try, and like, it helps so much. Now you might hate candles. You might hate the smell of them. You might whatever, again.
Right.
But like, if you think that something might help you, or specifically if there is something small or big, again, like this is a conversation that your spouse could do to help you, talk to him about it, right? Like for me, it was the candle, right? I'm like, can you like light some candles? Can we like try this out, right? And like, I think you will be amazed when you start opening up this conversation to, start small, start with something that you think might help. And then you become like, if it works, it's like easier to talk about something else next. It's easier to say, you know what, actually, maybe this would help too. Maybe this would help too. And if it doesn't work, like, don't get scared to try something else. Be brave in talking to your spouse about this. I know sometimes it can feel really uncomfortable to talk about sex with your spouse if you aren't regularly discussing it. But yeah, that's what I kind of want to end on, is just like, hey,
that's a good point.
Keep the conversation going. And if you just even have an inkling, if you listen to something on this episode and you're like, I think that actually might really help me, talk to your spouse about it.
Bring it up.
Yeah. And talk about, okay, sorry, one more thing before we close. Sorry. Talk about it outside of the like heat of the moment. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Maybe like a special dinner one night, put the kids to bed, give them their chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. And then,
oh my gosh, that's my favorite kind of date night. Is like, we make a box of mac and cheese for the kids. They're totally happy. We send them off to bed, and then like we have a nice dinner.
Yep. Those are always so fun. That would be a perfect opportunity to bring this stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Until next time, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.